Hey, boys and girls. So the video cut off the volume for the second half of April 9th. So here I am refilming that today. I would like to begin where the video cut out with reading. Okay. I had brought on my son and we were making a Venn diagram together. Okay. And so I had asked him, which part of the diagram was the part that was alike? And he had showed me this part. We call that the compare part. And then I said, which part of the diagram is the part that is different? And those are these two parts. Those are the contrast parts. So I had asked him, what was school like for him since he is homeschooling like you are? At home while he's doing his distance learning. And he had given me a couple of things. So we had made a one to review what these diagrams look like. And so I'd ask him, what was the same about home and school? And he said, well, we still get to see our teachers because the teachers make videos like I make for you. And so that was the same. Okay. And then he said he's still learning a lot. So he has a lot of schoolwork to do at home. Okay. And then I asked him what's different about learning at home is that he doesn't get to see his friends every day and he can't see all of his teachers every day when he's at home. Okay. He has a little bit more time outside when he's at home because he is not in the classroom all day. Okay. So while he's at school, he's usually in classrooms on the inside, unless it's PE or recess or something. And when he's home, he's outside a little bit more. Okay. He said that when he's at school, he also gets to have lunch and visit with his friends and things like that. So while he's at home, he can't, but he's spending more time with family while he's at home. Okay. Whereas during the school day in the regular year, he was spending more time with people at his school. Okay. And so some of the things that were the same were that he does his schoolwork. He gets to see teachers, and I asked him at the end which one he would rather do. Would he rather stay home and do his work, or would he rather go to school? And he told me that he misses school, just like I miss school and I miss seeing you every day. So today, if you have not already gotten out your reading papers, if you'll find your reading book, and let's go back over the lesson again, because you were not able to hear me. Okay. All right. So in our reading book, we have been talking about comparing and contrasting information to texts. Okay. So today was the independent practice. And if you have your book and you've printed out your pages, we're on 335, 334, and 335. And the two articles we're going to read today are both on taking care of the earth. If you've not had a chance to read the articles, if you will press pause on the video, please, and go ahead and read those articles for me, okay? The first one is called Recycle That by Faye Robinson. Okay, you're back. I hope that you've read the articles now. Okay, this is a social studies article, okay? So it gives you facts and information, okay? And doesn't tell a story, but we are going to ask you to compare and contrast the two different works, okay? So some words you may have seen in this video that you didn't know maybe are landfills, recycle. Okay. You probably know what trash and garbage are, I'm sure. Um, and so let's begin. Bottles, cans, mail, magazines, boxes, bags. We throw out a lot of trash. Everything we throw away came from somewhere. The paper products we use are made from trees. Thousands and thousands of trees are cut down each day to make the paper we use. Fields and hills are dug to get sand to make glass and metals to make cans. The plastics we use are made with oil pumped from deep inside the earth. Each time we take something from the earth, we change the earth. The ways we change it are not always good for us or for wild animals. And where does all of our trash go? Most of it goes into land set aside for trash. But we throw out so much trash that our landfills are filling up, and soon there won't be any more room. Can you tell from the story what a landfill is? What kind of word is landfill? Compound. Good. Land is a word. Fill is a word. Landfill is a place that we put our garbage, our trash. We don't have anywhere for it to go. They dig holes. They fill in the holes with the trash and cover it back up. We don't have anywhere else to put our trash. The story says, by using and throwing away so many things, we have created a big problem. What can you do to help? Recycle. When something is recycled, all or part of it is used again. Many towns and cities have special programs for recycling. Each house gets a special container for items to be recycled. Does your neighborhood have a can or a place that you can put recycled goods like plastic, glass, aluminum, things like that, paper? Paragraph 7. Often cans, bottles, and newspapers can be recycled. In some places, magazines and plastic bottles can be recycled too. Can you see why it's smart to recycle? Things that would have been wasted can be made into something useful instead. Each time you recycle one can, a bottle, or a newspaper, you help the earth a little bit. So recycle. It's easy. Can you tell what the word recycle means from this story? Let's take it apart. Okay. We talked about the prefix re before. Where have you heard re? Reuse, redo. Okay. Do you know what the prefix re means? Okay. Again. If you're going to reuse something, you're going to use it again. If you're going to redo it, you need to do it again. Remember, we talked about a cycle. We talked about life cycles, water cycles. The word cycle means it can be, if it's a life cycle, it's how it starts and it ends, and then new life starts again. Okay. So recycle means to reuse or use again for another cycle, right? Okay. So if someone asks you what this article was mostly about, okay, what would you say? If I ask you what was recycle that mostly about? Okay, you'd say taking care of the earth, right? Okay, to reuse and recycle things as much as possible. Okay, did you take a look at the pictures in the story? What are the pictures? Look at the captions of the first picture. Okay, do you see what those tables were made from? Recycled paper. How about that beautiful elephant? Recycled plastic bottles. Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, what can we learn from those two images in the text? We can learn that some new items can be made from old items, right? Okay, very good. So, what were some things in the story that can be used again or recycled? Paper, plastic, metals, okay? Foods, yes, okay, very good. Even food scraps can be used again. Glass, okay? Now, the second story, if you want to turn over, is on an article also on turning trash into treasure. What if someone asks you what it is a treasure? What would you say? Okay. A treasure is something you value very much. Okay. All right. So do we throw away our treasures? No, we throw away our trash. Let's look at some words to know in this article. Waste. What is waste? If the teacher says, don't waste the food, okay, or don't waste my paper, okay, to use and not use it appropriately, maybe, okay, very good, okay. Scraps is another word. Now, we talked about that in Charlotte's Web. Who eats food scraps? Wilbur the pig, remember? Okay, and we talked about the word cycle. A cycle means something that starts and goes again and again, a cycle. Okay, if you haven't read this story, press pause on the video and read for me now, please. Turning Trash into Treasure by Ron Friedel. When was the last time you threw away a banana peel? An apple core? A piece of paper? Maybe you could have recycled them instead. Now think about times at school when we've been able to recycle something. Anybody see those blue cans in the classroom? Sometimes we put in paper and things that in those cans that Ms. Gaylor can dump into the recycle bin. They can use that again. In the lunchroom, sometimes we had a bucket at the table in the front where you could put in your food scraps, the apple core you didn't eat, the banana peel, the orange peel. When we recycle things, we turn them into new things to use again. From old newspapers, did you know we can make new paper? From old cans and empty bottles, we can make new ones. Recycling can keep our landfills from getting too full because if we're not careful, we will run out of room. Do you remember what I said a landfill was in the last article? Okay, a place where we dump our trash and then fill it up and use the land again. Did you know that another way to recycle is to take those orange peelings, the banana peels, the apple cores, even the old vegetables that you didn't eat, and put them into a container? Does anybody know what that's called? Composting. Composting is another way to recycle. It's a great way to turn food and yard waste into good, rich soil. And you know, the soil can help things grow. Here's how to make compost. You need fruit and vegetable scraps, and you also need leaves, grass, and soil. Now put all these things into a wooden box or a container, and then you add a little bit of water and you have to stir, or some people turn it. They have it in a bin and they can turn the bin over and over. Finally, you'll cover that box. And after a few weeks, everything in the compost box starts to rot and break down. It doesn't really smell very good either. But you're doing a great thing. Do you know that the tiniest living things in nature help break them down? That food and vegetable scraps and those cores and peels break back down into soil. After a few more weeks, everything will have turned into rich soil. What do you do with that soil? You put it on your flowers that you want to grow or your vegetable garden. Very good. People use compost in their gardens to help their plants and flowers grow. Composting shows us how nature is a cycle. Things grow and then they die, and finally they become soil and help new things grow again. By recycling things we no longer need, we create new things, and we also take better care of the earth. Now let's look at these two articles for just a minute. If I ask you what the most important part of that article was, what would you say? Okay, the main purpose of that article was to tell you that how you can take trash and do something with it to turn it into something good, like composting, right? We have a big problem with too much trash, but if we would take some of the trash out and use it again, we wouldn't have as much trash, right? Okay? So both of those articles have something in common. And what would you say that would be? Okay? To use things again. Very good, okay? Or that word is to recycle. Now, the one we just read about turning trash into treasure mentioned food and that whether it be vegetable or fruit waste. Okay, we can turn food into this word called compost. Good. Composting is a good thing to do. Okay. Very good. Now, recycle that talks about all other things that we can recycle. Okay, what are some of those things we said we can recycle? Plastic, good. Paper, metals, okay. Very good, okay. And other things. So let's look we'll add to this before we do our writing response, but let's look at some of the questions. If you have your papers out, we're on 337. Now, don't forget at the end of the lesson, now this is the last lesson of the week. So you have to type in your answers and you have to have them done after this lesson. And then you have to turn in the reading responses. Otherwise, Miss Gaylor cannot give you credit. Make sure that you type them in and you get credit for your work, okay? All right, page 337, it says, this question has two parts. First, you answer part A, then part B. Now, you just read on both articles, which sentence about landfills is true? Okay, now it says four choices. A, landfills are a good solution to the trash problem. B, landfills will never get too full. C, landfills are safe places to dispose of trash. Dispose means to get rid of. Or D, landfills are not the best way to get rid of trash. Three of those answers, the articles did not state or say. Can you tell which one the article did say? Answer D, landfills are not the best way to get rid of trash. What is the best way to get rid of trash? Recycling or composting. Very good. Okay, so part B asks you to write a sentence from each article that helped you find the answer. So now you flip back to the articles and you can look at the one from turning trash into treasure. You need to look for a sentence that talks about recycling or composting. Okay, find a sentence, type in your answer, and do the same thing from a sentence from recycle that. Okay, in trash from treasure, if I look down, I see that it says recycling can keep our landfills from getting too full. Okay, and you need to look for another sentence from the first article as well. Press pause on your video if you need to take time to write down the answers, or you can come back to type them later. If you are ready, turn over to number 2 on the next page. Read the sentence from the article. Many towns and cities have special programs for recycling. Each home gets a special container for items to be recycled. Now, when you talk about a container is something you're going to put things in. This is my container for my toys. See, this basket is the container. Now I'm looking for a container to put in my recycled items like cans, paper, plastics. Am I going to look for a plan, thinking of how to do something before I do it? Am I going to look for a box, something that holds things inside it? Am I going to look for an area, an open place? Will I just put out the recycling in the open place? No. Or am I looking for a direction, something that you can follow or a way to go? Which of those am I going to put a container? Okay, I'm going to actually pick number B, a box to put them in. Now, the next part, you're going to need to probably make your own Venn diagram. You're going to add to this, and you're going to plan your response before you write. It says, compare and contrast the most important parts of the article. What parts are the same? What parts are different? And then after you have your diagram planned, they want you to look at what important points does each writer include about recycling. You can go back and underline them in your articles to help you then put a Venn diagram together. You can do this on loose leaf, or you can type it into the document, okay? And they want you to compare and contrast the two articles. Okay, so what's something you want to mention as that they both have in common? The compare part, you want to mention the word they both talk about recycling, to use again. You need to make sure you start your paragraph with a topic sentence, and I would start with something like this. Both articles say that people throw out a lot of trash and that we should try to recycle, right? And then you talk about turning trash into treasure, mentions a lot about composting. Composting is a way of recycling by reusing those plants, vegetables, and fruits. And then you also want to mention something from Recycle That, how we can take things from our earth and we can make them, we can use them again, like metals, glass, plastic, things like that. And then you would write and finish up your paragraph there. When you get done, the last part, of course, is called your learning target. How does comparing and contrasting 2 points in two different texts on the same topic help you learn more about the topic? Right? Well, when you read the articles, you can see what the author thought was important. So once you learn what was important, you can look at the facts that each article states, and then you can learn more about the information that you are reading about. So that just gives you some ideas on how to write that, okay? Very good. All right, if you need to press pause on the video, you may do so. Ms. Gaylord's going to jump into our social studies lesson. Now, in social studies, we've been talking about every day about economy. We've got 2 more days next week, and that'll be it on economy. Then we're going to move on to science. Now, we've been talking about lots of words, and this week we talked about this type of exchange. Okay, I read you the story about the fisherman and the knife, and how the fisherman did not have what he needed, and all he had was a fish. He went to the knife maker because he needed a knife, but the knife maker did not need the fish. Instead, the knife maker needed the hat, so he had to go all the way to the hat maker. The hat maker needed some bread, so then he went to the bread maker, and then he got the bread to trade for the hat, to go back to trade for the knife to get what he needed. We don't use that today. That was called bartering. Some people may use bartering, but most people use something like this. This is called money. Now, this is the change. We've been talking about money. We learned that money is called a medium of exchange. That means that you can find something you want and then you trade for it by giving the money. You pay for it. Now, money in America has a set value. We don't use rocks anymore. We don't use an animal like a sheep or something. We use a set of money with a value. And how do we get our money? We work at a job to earn money. Okay. And then people can use their money to buy goods and services. Now, which one is easier? Bartering, going in and washing your dishes maybe at the restaurant for your meal, or paying for it. Okay. Money makes things a little bit easier than bartering. You don't have to worry about going in and doing work to get something to eat. Now, make sure that you completed all the Google Forms. There was 2 for the week. Make sure you did the one on money and the one on economy, okay? And make sure that you have clicked turn in on those. Now, today's lesson is on saving money. People can do 2 things with their money. They can spend it or they can save it. Some people like to spend what they need on bills and then save a portion of it for later. When you save money, it can add up over time, and people can use money in the future to buy goods and services. Now, let's think about you with your money. Let's say you got money for your birthday or Christmas. Are you one that likes to tuck that money away and save it for something later? Or are you that wants to go right away to the Walmart or the Target or somewhere and spend that money? Okay, yeah. Miss Gaylord has 3 children and she's got 1 saver who likes to tuck it away and 2 spenders. Don't tell him I told you that. She's got 1 saver, and so he always has money. But sometimes people like to spend some of that money or just spend a little and save some. So let's talk about that today when we talk about saving. Now, what would you use your saved money for? Tell somebody at your house what you would save up for if you could. Or maybe you have. Listen to this story about saving money. Rachel and Evan get $10 as a weekly allowance for doing chores at their home. Now, all children don't get an allowance. Some families like mine, the children in the family do chores because that's part of living in the family. They may take out the trash. They may mow the yard because they live in my family and they help. But in some families, you get what you call an allowance. And in this family, they did. Rachel and Evan got allowances. They would get, if they did everything mom or dad asked, they would get $10 a week. Now, Evan likes to play video games. And he wants to buy a video game that costs $50. You know, that's a lot. He does not have the $50. Okay, but he gets $10 a week. Now, Evan has decided that every week, though, when he gets his $10, he likes to go to the dollar store and he likes to buy candy, ice cream, Takis, little toys. And so he has spent his money. Okay, so he does not have the money to get a video game. Rachel, who's also in the same family, also gets the $10 allowance, but she likes to draw and color. She's decided she wants to buy a new art set that also costs $50. She decides that every week she'll save her money, her $10, and she will save up to buy that art set. After 5 weeks, she has enough money and she can go to the store and get the art set. Now, from that story, who spent money every week? Evan, good. Who saved money every week? Rachel. Now, both of them gave up something. What do we call the word that when you get something, but you have to give up something else? That's your opportunity cost. Now, Evan got something every week. He went to the dollar store and he got the candy, he got the Takis or whatever he wanted, the soda. But what did he give up? He could not get the video game. So which was his opportunity cost? The video game. Good. Now, Rachel also got something. What did she get? She got the $50 art set. But what did she give up? She gave up going to the dollar store, getting the candy and the toys and the sodas and such. So that was her opportunity cost. Okay. So that's this part of economy that we wanted you to learn today. Now, next week, we've got 2 more lessons on economy before we will wrap it up. Okay. All right. So I hope that you've enjoyed that. Don't forget to look at the forms and turn those in. The last thing I want to do today is look at the last part of ELA, which is our study of Charlotte's Web. Okay. Can you tell me, maybe summarize the story so far that's happened? Okay, maybe you can press pause and do that and tell me out loud. The setting of this story is a farm, right? This is the barnyard. This is the farm that they live in, okay? Our main characters so far have been who? Wilbur the pig, okay? We've learned Fern Arable, okay? We've also learned some of the animals that are in the barn, okay? Whose farm does Wilbur live on? Mr. Zuckerman's farm. Good. Who's the man that takes care of Wilbur, the hired man? Lurvy. Good. We've also learned the goose, the gander, the sheep, and some of the other animals. Now, yesterday's lesson, we left off with one certain thing that happened. Wilbur was quite lonely. He was needing somebody to play with. He asked all the animals, "Will you play with me?" He even asked the rat, whose name was Templeton, and he couldn't find anybody to play. So he heard a voice as he was about to go to sleep. And he was very sad, and the voice said that she would be his friend. Now, Wilbur does not know who this voice is, and we don't either. And Wilbur was so excited, he was not even able to sleep that night. He lay down, and it says, I'm on page 35, that he did not know it, but his friend was very near. And that's where we're going to begin today. Okay. All right. And Wilbur was so excited because he said, today is the day that I find my friend. If you have your copy of the book, that's awesome. We're on page 35. You can always follow along in the PDF that Miss Gaylord sent. Now, don't forget, by now you should have completed chapters 1, 2, and 3. Complete the Google form, press send so that you can get credit. Soon Lurvy appeared with slops for breakfast. Wilbur rushed out, ate everything in a hurry, and licked the trough. Remember, the trough was his feeding tray. Good. The sheep moved off down the lane. The gander walked along behind them, pulling grass. And then, just as Wilbur was settling down for his morning nap, he heard again the thin voice that had addressed him the night before. "Salutations," said the voice. Wilbur jumped to his feet. What?" he cried. "Salutations," repeated the voice. "Oh, what are they? And where are you?" screamed Wilbur. Please tell me where you are. And what are salutations?" "Salutations are greetings," said the voice. Like, hello. "When I say salutations, it's just my fancy way of saying hello or good morning. Actually, it's a silly expression, and I am surprised that I used it at all. As for my whereabouts, that's easy. Look up here in the corner of the doorway. Look, here I am. Look, I'm waving." At last, Wilbur saw the creature that had spoken to him in such a kindly way. Stretched across the upper part of the doorway was a big spider web, and hanging from the top of the web head down was a large gray spider. She was about the size of a gumdrop. She had 8 legs, and she was waving one of them at Wilbur in a friendly greeting. "See me now?" she asked. "Oh, yes, indeed," said Wilbur. "Yes, indeed. How are you? Good morning. Salutations. Very pleased to meet you. What is your name, please? May I have your name?" "My name," said the spider, "is Charlotte." "Well, Charlotte what?" asked Wilbur eagerly. "Charlotte A. Kvitica, but just call me Charlotte." "I think you're beautiful," said Wilbur. "Well, I am pretty," replied Charlotte. "There's no denying that. Almost all spiders are rather nice looking. I am not as flashy as some, but I'll do. I wish I could see you, Wilbur, as clearly as you can see me. Well, why can't you? Said the pig. I'm right here. Yes, but I am nearsighted, replied Charlotte. I've been always been dreadfully nearsighted. It's good in some ways and not so good in others. Watch me wrap up this fly. Now, nearsighted means she can see things close, but she can't see far away. Watch me wrap up the fly. A fly had been crawling along Wilbur's trough, had flown up and blundered into the lower part of Charlotte's web, and was now tangled in sticky threads. The fly was beating its wings furiously, trying to break loose and free itself. First, said Charlotte, I dive at him, and she plunged headfirst toward the fly. As she dropped, a tiny silken thread unwound from around her rear end. Next, I wrap him up. She grabbed the fly and threw a few jets of silk and rolled it over and over, wrapping it so that it couldn't move. Wilbur watched in horror. He could hardly believe what he was seeing. Although he detested flies, which means he did not like them, he hated them, he felt sorry for this one. There, said Charlotte. Now I knock him out so he'll be more comfortable. She bit the fly. He can't feel a thing now, she remarked. He'll make a perfect breakfast for me. You mean you eat flies? Gasped Wilbur. Certainly, said Charlotte. Flies, bugs, grasshoppers, choice beetles, moths, butterflies, tasty cockroaches, gnats, midges, daddy longlegs, centipedes, mosquitoes, crickets, anything that is careless enough to get caught in my web. I have to live, don't I? Why, yes, of course, said Wilbur. Do they taste good? Delicious, she said. Of course, I don't really eat them. I drink them, drink their blood. I love blood, said Charlotte, and her pleasant, thin voice grew even thinner and more pleasant. Don't say that, groaned Wilbur. Please don't say things like that. Well, why not? Said Charlotte. It's true. And I have to say what is true. I am not entirely happy about my diet of flies and bugs, but it is the way I'm made. A spider has to pick up a living somehow or other, and I happen to be a trapper. I just naturally build a web and trap flies and other insects. My mother was a trapper before me. Her mother was a trapper before her. All our family's been trappers, way back for thousands and thousands of years. We spiders have been laying for flies and bugs. Well, it's a miserable inheritance, said Wilbur. Do you know what an inheritance is? Okay, something that's been handed down to you from your parents. Wilbur said it gloomily. He was sad because his new friend was so bloodthirsty. Yes, it is, agreed Charlotte, but I can't help it. And I don't know how the first spider of the early days would have happened to think up this fancy idea of spinning a web, but she did, and it was very clever of her, too. And since then, all of us spiders have had to work the same trick. It's not a bad pitch on the whole. Well, it's cruel, said Wilbur, who did not intend to be argued out of his position. Well, you can't talk, said Charlotte. You have your meals brought to you in a pail. Remember the slops? Nobody feeds me, she said. I have to get my own living. I live by my wits, which is by my thinking ability, my smarts. I have to be sharp, she said, and clever, or I'll go hungry. I have to think things out, catch what I can, and take what comes. And it just so happens, my friend, that what comes is flies and insects and bugs. And furthermore, said Charlotte, shaking one of her legs, do you realize that if I didn't catch the bugs and eat them, that bugs would increase and multiply and get so numerous that they would destroy the earth and wipe out everything? Really? Said Wilbur. I wouldn't want that to happen. Perhaps your web is a good thing after all. The goose had been listening to this conversation and chuckling to herself. You know what chuckling means? Laughing, giggling. There are a lot of things Wilbur doesn't know about life, she thought. He's really a very innocent pig. Do you know what innocent means? Okay. Not guilty, yes. Not in the wrong. He doesn't even know what's going to happen to him around Christmas time. He has no idea that Mr. Zuckerman and Lurvy are plotting, thinking a way to kill him. And the goose raised herself and poked her around her eggs a little further under her so they would receive the full heat from her warm body and soft feathers. Charlotte stood quietly over the fly, preparing to eat it. Wilbur lay down and closed his eyes. He was tired from his wakeful night and from the excitement of meeting someone for the first time. A breeze brought him the smell of clover, the sweet-smelling world beyond his fence. Well, he thought, I have got a new friend, all right. But what a gamble friendship is. He thought to himself, Charlotte is fierce, brutal, scheming, bloodthirsty, everything I don't like. How could I learn to like her, even though she is pretty and, of course, clever? Wilbur was merely suffering the doubts and fears that often go with finding a new friend. But in good time, Wilbur was going to discover that he was mistaken about Charlotte. Underneath her bold and rather cruel exterior, what she was like on the outside, she had a kind heart, and she was to prove loyal until the very end. Now, we'll pause here at the end. If you want to start chapter 6 over the weekend and get a head start, that'd be great. One thing that happened as we wrap up is that the goose told us something in the story that made me think. Did you catch what it was? We call that word a foreshadow, okay? Foreshadow means before it actually happens. The goose said something that was kind of a, let's think about that moment. A foreshadow, okay? What did the goose say? Wilbur doesn't even know that Mr. Zuckerman plans to kill him around Christmas time. Kill Wilbur? What is the reason why most farmers would raise pigs? For their meat. What do we get from a pig? Okay, bacon, ham, sausage, okay? This is something from the book I'm not sure about. So let's remember that in the back of our minds as we go to continue the book. The goose told us some interesting information there. Now, I hope that you join me tomorrow with our Zoom. I will send you today the Zoom link so that you can join us and see your friends tomorrow. If you're unable to join, don't forget to mark everything turned in. Did you do your iReady this week? Did you do the minutes every day? You should look in your reading and math and make sure that you've got your 80 minutes. Did you do your MobyMax? Make sure you hit the turn in button and check everything before you wrap up for the week, okay? All right, well, if I don't see you tomorrow, you have a great Easter, and I will look forward to seeing you again on Monday, okay? See you soon.